a note. We did put the link for her book in the chat, and then if you want to be added to our poetry only mailing list, we do a show weekly. So if you want to be on that list, just send me your email address. We'll add you to the list. So Barbara, welcome. I know we had a little chat yesterday, and I'm looking forward to your reading, your thoughts on a variety of topics. So where do you find refuge? Where does that locate for you? No, you're muted.
I want to start out by making a distinction between refuge and refuge, and just a mention of the people in Ukraine who are genuinely seeking refuge, either in their own country, underground, or, where they travel to. And the refuge that I think, we in a safe environment think of, which can be in all sorts of places, like, from food and sleep to other worlds. And I think I gravitate to other worlds. I grew up with a second language in the house, so I was kind of in two worlds anyway. And it's just to amuse myself or to survive in an environment that was not altogether amicable. So I guess the imagination, I would have to say. And I'm not mentioning coffee ice cream, okay? Because my friends know that that's where I find a lot of refuge.
Yeah, we're getting you a subscription to, I think, coffee ice cream newsletter. We're not only kidding. No, yeah, no, you should have some Grater's ice cream. Yeah. You should take a little tour of ice cream around the world. That would be a good.
Oh my God, that would be a 4-star trip.
Yeah, that's it. So just tell me, a little bit about the two worlds. Is there refuge in both worlds, or is there one that's safer and the other one you just visit every once in a while?
Interesting question. I guess the regular world is the world I exist in from day to day, but I find refuge in creating another world. And that's the joy. Any artist knows that it's the act of creation that is so pleasurable. And it's interesting why it's so pleasurable, because you lose all track of time. And time is what defines the everyday world. Everything is measured by time. But when you, quote, lose yourself in creating, that's the best.
Nice. So is refuge a theme that shows up in your poetry? Or it could be refugee, either one.
I could refugee. That's an interesting question too. Well, my parents were refugees, so I'm the only one born in this country. So I kind of feel like a refugee with one foot in this world and another foot in Central Europe. My mother was Czech. So I find refuge in both, I guess, because I don't feel totally at home here. That sounds odd, but I really don't. And I think that's because my experiences have been so different from, quote, I'm saying quote a lot, the average American. The average American grew up with Ozzie and Harriet, at least people in my age group. And that was not what was happening in our house. In our house, we were getting phone calls from lawyers who were trying to locate people who had been lost in the Holocaust, or trying to get restitution for those that made it here. And even though I was a child and was not supposed to be hearing all this stuff, because if I say the Holocaust was never talked about in my house, I mean it. I mean that I learned what I did by eavesdropping. And maybe that's the other world, eavesdropping.
Interesting. So are there a couple of poems that you could read for us now that?
Well, here's a strange one to begin with, but I will. Because the mores were very different. We used to call it die ganze Circus, the whole circus, the whole refugee world. there were a lot of refugees when I grew up in Forest Hills, New York. And as I said, the mores were quite different, as you'll tell, from this poem. So a relative of mine told me when I was around 50 that my father had a mistress, which I never knew about. And I think she was trying to hurt me. But the first question I thought of, oh, did my mother know? I wasn't upset at all. I felt kind of happy for my father. Everyone should know love in this life. So because of that statement, I imagined 3 mistresses for my father. There are 3. And this last one is Lily. Had it been me, I would have chosen Lily Robinson for her cigarette holders and thin pell-mells, the only one in the refugee circle who drew a beauty mark next to her mouth, wore slinky black tuxedo pants paired with a white satin blouse. She had the same air as Marlene Dietrich, only Lily's hair was black and shiny, with razor-sharp bangs and spit curls. Who wouldn't have adored Lily? So devil-may-care, singing chanson while husband Willie ran chords along the baby grand. Rumor had it that there was a threesome, Lily, Willie, and Dodo, all 3 of them the best of friends. The rest of the country loved Ozzie and Harriet. No wonder I felt a world apart, where everyone here was because of Hitler. Everyone escaped while others had perished. Everyone took pills to bring on sleep, took marital risks, drove too fast, favored sweets, and could not get enough.
Very nice. I was kind of a Leave It to Beaver guy. I like the I like the hijinks part. So it's a little chaos, a little disruption.
Well, that's played out in your life.
Yeah, my brother was like Wally, and I was like the beaver. So yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
I love the Lone Ranger. Okay, I thought he was hot.
Yeah, yeah, Lone Ranger, Sky King. Yeah, there was a whole, forget about the Marvel superheroes. I think there was a whole 1950s set of superheroes that were, yeah, quite remarkable if you were a young child. So
Right.
great.
Let me read just one more, which talks about the strangeness. I hadn't planned on this, but it seems to fit. And it's called Carvel. Do you know what Carvel is?
The ice cream?
Yeah. Oh, gosh, I was just talking about it. Carvel. In the summer, when the days were light longer, we'd pile in the car and drive down Metropolitan Avenue for soft ice cream at Carvel's. Those nights, we could have been a regular American family out for a spin, whose father maybe tossed a ball with his kids, or tousled their hair, or let himself be tickled. But we knew his moods would return when we tiptoe around the house, lay low. This was the 50s. There was Korea, but it was far away, and it wasn't our war. And they weren't murdering our people. Later, I'd learned, but only much later, after he was long gone, that he gave our blue Persian carpet to Franz Matana, who was broke and could sell it for cash. He also gave money to his mother's 7 brothers and sisters, and some got out in time, dispersing to Israel, Australia, South Africa. Or the year he paid the bills for the Swiss sanitarium my uncle stayed at after the war to put on fat. These kindnesses, these things my father did without thinking twice, what to say about them, about him, except that how a man treats his own children is only one part of the story, and there are others.
Very nice. Very nice. Yeah, very nice. So you found that out after he had
Yeah,
passed?
well, he died when I was 14.
Oh,
So there was lots of unfinished business. And I think that probably was one of my, what shall I say? I hate to say goals. One of my missions was to create a different relationship with him than I had as a child, because I was frightened of him. There's no doubt about it. But yet, I obviously loved him a lot, because he was the taskmaster, he was the judge. He was like a Prussian soldier. Hate to
mm,
say it.
yeah. Yeah, interesting. It's interesting what we find out about our parents
Yeah.
after they've left for another world. Yeah. Yeah.
Someone once said that there's always one child in the family who's the witness. And this is, I think, very interesting. My sister has total amnesia about her childhood. We talk and she said, well, that never happened or that never happened. I mean, I guess that was my role, which I don't know if I chose it specifically, kind of was drawn to it naturally.
Hmm. Yeah, I think one of my favorite memories, you're gonna laugh, is my grandmother lived with us. Yeah, we kind of had a boarding house life. All sorts of different brothers, sisters, cousins lived with us. So my grandmother would be smoking a Camel hanging out of her mouth with 70 cards in her canasta holder.
Oh my gosh.
And in our house, when you're 8 years old, you were treated like an adult at the card table. So she'd be like, she wouldn't be using the F word, but she'd be dishing out, dumb moves, stuff like this. Yeah, when you were at the card table with the Camel smoker, you were
She's the
obviously
real
going to get. What's that?
she's the real thing.
Oh God, she was. I wish I think in I wish I could go back and just be a fly on the wall and have some deep appreciation for the family members. And, it's like I don't remember. I wish I had a broader memory of all these daily in and outs and how special they were.
Well, I have to say that we're different, and I did not have a large family. I think I had one uncle, and when he married, there were two children, but otherwise, everyone had died. And
Yeah.
not to get too morbid
Yeah.
about it, but I have to tell you that my mother played canasta too. I don't know if she smoked a Camel, but there were these card parties, and there were these little chocolates in every corner.
Yeah. The 50s. So what it's interesting that, I'm just wondering if that's true. One person, one child in the family is the witness, and a bunch of others have amnesia. Yeah, I'm
Well,
just
I
wondering if
say
that.
total amnesia. I'm not saying that. It's just true in the case of my sister. Now, the first, couple of months of her life, she was traveling in a car from France to Bordeaux to get the visa to come. She was on a ship. She went to South America
Yeah.
before we could come to the States. So, and all I know is that my grandmother was constantly feeding her milk, so she wouldn't cry too much. And she was very close to my grandmother, and I practically had no relationship with her because by the time I was born, I mean, she was older, which means like 63.
Yeah. Huh.
So I don't want to come down hard. It's just that, and who knows what she would have been like without that. All I know is that I did seem to remember inconvenient things, shall we say.
Nice. Nice. So what does witnessing mean to you now?
I think it's also the same thing. And maybe that's why I've gotten so interested in translation in the last number of years, is because I'm very curious about other worlds. Other worlds are, I mean, even different cultures, different languages. I'm
Yeah.
fascinated with language. And I think I was fascinated with language even as a child. But I'm just saying it's a big world out there. And I just am very interested in the smaller countries or in the less commonly spoken languages and creating, as I said, these other worlds. And Oh, I can think of something like a couple of years ago, I got interested. Well, I've always been interested in fairy tales because I know in this country, fairy tales means grim, and I surely had those. But there also was a book I had called Struwwelpeter, Shock-Headed Peter. And actually, Auden commented on this book. There were these little sadistic tales that a German, believe it or not, pediatrician wrote, about sucking your thumb and then, a tailor would come and snip your thumb off, stuff like that. Now, why did I go there? I don't know, but I wanted to create a fairy tale that had the heroine. The hero always goes out and he conquers something or he battles something, and it's always his wits that gets you safe. I mean, Gretel had input, let's put it that way. But, Hansel was the one who figured it out, who tried to kill the witch, et cetera, et cetera. So I wanted one with a starring woman. So then became the question, what kind of world was it? Who was working against her? What kind of crafty things did she have to do to kind of get back home, which was the goal? So I created this world, and and it's about 27 poems together, and it's called Kingdom of Speculation. And in the Kingdom of Speculation, it's like a parable. Things like grief and and passion and reason were characters. They had names. And so she crossed over into this other kingdom, the Kingdom of Speculation, and she had all sorts of trials and travails in order to get home. So I can read you a little about the Kingdom of Speculation.
I don't know. I think we might be in the kingdom of speculation now.
Well, yeah, okay.
We're in some kingdom. I don't know what it is, but we're somewhere else right now. Yeah, great. That'd be great to hear a few poems. Yeah.
Well, I'll do that one because this is one I kind of created from scratch. A lot of my other poems are based on myth or fairy tale or real events that happened in the Middle Ages. I have a series, or in the Renaissance.
Yeah.
I mean, I think what's unusual about my work is that, to put it bluntly, it's all over the place. I do quite formal and sedate poems, believe me. And then these ones that just come out of nowhere. They're, of course, the ones I love. So, the Kingdom of Speculation. Eggs, coddled or poached, are the food of choice in the Kingdom of Speculation. For eggs are exceedingly rare and stored in brooders. Brooders are guarded by men who sport checkered vests and twirl batons. To steal an egg is to be beaten to death, and the graves of thieves are stacked like dominoes at the edge of town. The rich feast on eggs, while the poor eat dumplings, which look like eggs but sink in the belly. Chickens are revered, the most popular tunes being hymns composed in their honor. In this kingdom, only the weather is fair, and the air holds the scent of cardamom. Overhead, birds fly ignored, singing an ostinato. What if, what if, what if? Now that I think of it, what if is a good way to go through life. Seriously.
I think you would have got along with Dr. Seuss pretty well.
Exactly. Funny you should say that. What if? But I was thinking, when I'm a little bit, a teensy bit bipolar, just, not enough to really interfere with my functioning. But when I get depressed, I look at the sky and I say, but this is weird. I say, God didn't have to make colors. The world could have been gray. There's no law. And and that helps me kind of see that, I guess that it's a mixed world.
Nice. Very nice. So just to get, I'm still, this whole witnessing and amnesia thing. Wendy, we have to write this down. This will be season 3. The amnesia from witnessing. That'll be our next season. No, it's so interesting.
That's called trauma.
What's that?
That's called trauma, I think.
Yeah.
If there's amnesia, there's some kind of trauma, even if it's not known to the person, him or herself.
Yeah, I'm always amazed that, children living in the same house have such a different experience. But obviously circumstances, play a really big part in it. So, and Wendy just put a comment, fascinating the way trauma touches subsequent generations.
Oh, that's true. That's very true. As a matter of fact, there've been books written about first and second generation. Last night, I heard a program about someone third generation, and it's very different. Some survivors, for instance, talk about the Holocaust nonstop. And in a way, I'm very fortunate that didn't happen, because then your imagination takes over and you imagine things in a way worse than they are. And that Hansel and Gretel, getting back to that, I hated that fairy tale. I mean, there was that witch in a cage, and that just frightened me. And anything to do with fire, like Rumpelstiltskin, I think someone's thrown in an oven. Wait a minute, who's thrown in an oven? But anyway, I didn't like that one very much. If any of them, I like the 7 Dancing Princesses.
Yeah.
That one.
Yeah, I think the witch got thrown in the oven in Hansel and Gretel.
Hansel and Gretel.
Yeah. So Craig Neal put a comment, said, I would read the Mannheim translation of Grimm's tales to my young sons. They love the gore, violence, and betrayal, along with their exposure to the Disney versions.
Ooh.
Yeah, ooh.
There are people who hate the Disney version because they feel it's diluted. But the fact is, I love Struwwelpeter too, with all of the horrible things. I can't tell you why children love gore, but they do.
Yeah, that's amazing. So are there some more poems you could read for us? Now, that book looks, how many pages are in that book?
Well,
looks like a Bible.
Oh, it is. It's my Bible. And I go over it all the time. And I'm thinking, hey, that's not bad. How did I write that? And I have to say that a lot of the images truly are gifts. They come from nowhere. I cannot tell you. And in that thing, let me see if I can find Marilyn, because that's one of the later poems I wrote. And that all came from, let me just see if I can find it. Here it is. This came from a kind of assignment.
Okay.
I seem to be very obedient and I do my assignments, but a friend of mine said that that a friend of hers was making an anthology called I Want to Be Loved by You. I think that's what it's called. And the whole anthology consists of Marilyn poems. And when she told me that, I thought, Marilyn, why Marilyn? I mean, I was not fascinated by her at all. And I know it's hard to believe, but when I was younger, this was pitch black. And I had kind of like Asian eyes. I mean, I don't know, I'm a faded beauty. But in any case, Marilyn goes like this. Marilyn, had it been me, I never would have chosen her. Too blonde, too white, too drop dead gorgeous. Not to mention her voice, breathy and hesitant. I guess some men like that. Luckily for Marilyn, I'm not a man. Now take Audrey Hepburn, petite, spiked bangs, French twist, her taste for wit, someone I could grow into. So many girls like to make themselves stupid or lose on purpose. Like this girl in college, also blonde, also stacked. She could spin 1,000 angels on the head of a pin. But at parties, she'd drink too much and act dumb. The boys, she said, ate it up. I wouldn't even want a guy like that, who wouldn't know how to spar or crack a joke who'd simply ache to dive headfirst into her décolletage and sleep in the pillowy softness of her flesh. I preferred those who hoarded secrets, little treasures buried like truffles, deep in the underbelly of the earth. Where those truffles came from, I don't know. I mean, I thought I had finished the poem 4 lines earlier. I mean, really, you know, in the pillowy softness of her flesh, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
And there was something nagging, which means there's something not finished. And I cannot tell you how long I obsessed about this ending. I mean, truly, it was for months. This was I don't even know why it was so hard. Once I had the truffles, you'd think I'd be gangbusters. But, you know, it wasn't. It took a long time. And a lot of times it's like that. Like some of the poem will come very quickly, and other parts you really have to struggle and wait for. And the other thing I want to mention is I'm very ambivalent about most things. It's hard for me to make up my mind. Ask anyone who's gone shopping with me in black boots. I mean, I go this way and that way, and it's just painful. Now, the advantage of being, and that's true for men too, you know, like, who was I going to marry? Was it this one or that one? But I think the gift it gives me is the ability to hold the process open so that something else can come in, you know, another kind of image or truth or guy can come in and take that place if you're not sure. So a lot of people get very uncomfortable if a poem is left open too long. They just want to finish it because it's nagging. It's like an itch that won't stop. And I just think it's nothing I work for or try for. It's just the way I am. It just annoys me. And I just know it's not right. And I do know that when it is right, it's like locked. No more change possible. It's done. And then I think, so who wrote that? So I don't know.
So your fan club has done some fact checking on the finishing time for the poem.
Oh.
And Karen basically said it was at least 2 months for you to finish that.
That's true. I would call her up and I say, well, do you like this or do you like that? Or do you know, I can be very annoying. And she was very patient. Thank you very much. She also, by the way, has a poem in that anthology, I Want to Be Loved by You. So it was obviously a subject that stimulated a lot of response.
So Wendy, who is the director of the library, asked if you could read Night Watch.
Sure, because I was going to say that's something else that happens during the pandemic. I was thinking about that in terms of, let's see, Night Watch. I was thinking in terms of what gets awakened during a time of, in a time of stress. Give me a moment, Wendy. I was thinking, should I really read that? Okay, here it is. And the other thing gets wakened is desire or fantasy or dreams or what could have been. And Night Watch is like a poem like that. And you know, it's funny, my friends know this. Don't say anything. Oh God, I have an audience of thousands. But even at my age, and I never did this at puberty or anything, I get crushes. You know, I get crushes on guys who look good. And they're not exactly age appropriate, but I mean, it doesn't go more than just thinking about how beautiful they are. It's like Marilyn Monroe. Okay, I won't make excuses. It's like admiring beauty. So here's one, Night Watch. Give desire a shape, no matter if that shape be squalor or sailor, bronzed, blue-eyed, with muscles of a man addicted to lifting weights. You ache to touch his forearms. Give him moves, subtle, deliberate, and foreknowledge of where to put his plate. Make it night. Have him strip, swim the length of the turquoise pool. Don't jump in. Listen instead to the voluptuous rhythm of his wake. When he emerges, naked, the water dripping from his skin, it is you who are exposed. Are you happier for it, to know you could not bear the tension of a slow seduction? You choose this drama to unfold as monologue, the way you will replay this scene, your fierce longing, and how you were taken.
Very nice. Very
Despite
nice.
all you're taken,
Yeah.
whether in real life or not.
Yeah. Hey, Barbara, we want to have, the hour disappears too quick. So we want to let the audience have a chance to ask some questions live.
Okay.
If people want to do that, last year we let it, last 5 minutes, and it just didn't give it justice. So if anyone has a question, Karen, obviously you've got more fact checking you want to share. So no, only kidding. Look at Barbara's like cringing now.
Facts. Oh my God, they're real?
Facts are real, yeah. So it's a new phenomenon. Some facts are real. There was a scientific study. Yeah, facts. I think people think it means FAX. Facts. Facts are real.
So can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Okay. So Barbara, could you talk a little bit about the process of picking poems for your new and selected breaking and entering? Because I mean, that took a lot of energy and a lot of thought and a lot of consternation, in the same way that you go over a poem, whether it's the or a.
Yeah, I could read that poem like years. That's an interesting question, because it was, as a friend of mine would say, torture. Because just like yesterday, when I was trying to decide what to read for today, and I thought, ooh, I think I'd like to read that one. And I couldn't find it in the book. It's because I had left it out. And I had left out a lot of poems because, I mean, you think this is a big fat book? If I had combined all my books, it would be fatter. And it just was very painful, because each poem, I'm very attached to it in a different kind of way than when I'm actually creating it. So of course I went through each book and pulled what I thought. I don't even want to say best, because they're all my babies. I'm very indiscriminatory, if that's the word. So it was painful. And I just felt, well, I can only obsess so long. Karen helped me proofread, so she knows. And, like I can include this, but not that. And a lot of times the that's were further exclamations or explanations of the this. So I wouldn't want to do it again. If that's a good way to say it. And I can't write any more poems. This is done. See, done.
So it's interesting you said that you feel a certain way about the poems, I guess maybe when they're kind of baked and come right out of the oven. But when
that's a good way of saying it.
Yeah, but when you have to package them up or do something different, you really feel different about that. Just talk about that. That just seems like, I felt like if there was a poem that was really meaningful to you, wouldn't it be really meaningful to be placed in the book? Or are you're going with this ambivalence about, I don't know, maybe I should, I shouldn't, or?
Well, there's so many, John. It's like you have so many children.
Yeah.
And I think it's just that maybe over time, some poems resonate more with you than others. And even in the time that it took to select these poems, other poems have kind of, sprouted up. I have more father poems than you would want to hear. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's a novel, but I've never felt like writing a novel. So, it's just really a question of being, what's the word? Discriminatory. And by the way, I don't have trouble with this with someone else's work. Not at all. I can tell right away. Isn't that odd? Well, I can tell right away for me, but I trust my judgment, except when it comes to my own. I said, I really wrote this. I mean, why? Or what started this one? And a lot of times I don't remember what instigated it, but there usually is something that makes it begin. I heard a writer, I'm wondering if it was Toni Morrison. She was asked she was asked, where do poems come from? Who was it? Anyway, she said, poems are everywhere. It's just a question of selecting which ones you're going to write. I can't say that's my process at all. My process is that it begins with a phrase or a word or something I see. It's mysterious. This is all, probably not appropriate, but a lot of the really well-known writers in the 1950s and so, they didn't want to be psychoanalyzed, mostly men writers, but because that's who, had the reputation at the time. They didn't want to know too much about their process.
Yeah.
Because they felt if they knew too much, like the mystery of it would be gone. And how do you attract the muse?
Yeah, interesting. So let me ask you this. I've asked this of a few people over the last couple of months. Do you think people with everything that's going on kind of reach a witnessing overload where they really, it's like they just can't absorb anymore. It's not even that the pot is filled and maybe the water is overflowing. It's just that there's no space for it. There's too many things. Your system is not able to process. I mean, just listen. Take anything. Take the last week, the last month. Take any time period since the beginning of 2020, and I think at times it just feels overwhelming. And I'm just wondering.
It does, and people have lost the value of silence, which is very beautiful. But I do, and it's interesting that there's a front page story in the Post today about which pictures are too graphic, because they raise too many issues of what's allowable in common vision. And I don't know if people feel that way, but it's always an issue for photographers. Is this just way too much? I know I felt that way about our last president. I just didn't want to hear about it anymore. It was too upsetting. It was very upsetting. And I'm going to guess that there are a lot of people in this room, it was upsetting.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to be upset by that or by him. I wanted to be upset by, I guess, my own shtick. Maybe I'm narcissistic, but I just didn't want to have to think about that. And yeah. I think you're right.
So are there more poems that you want to read for us? I mean, yeah, there's probably just 90 poems left in the book you could read.
Well, 100 and something, but.
Okay, so we have to be off the air by midnight, so we're good.
I'm going to, let's see, I hadn't written this down, but I think I'll do it anyway. Oh. Actually, this is for a specific person. We were talking about insomnia. And I think another thing that happens during this time period is people they want to take refuge in sleep. And sleep is not always something that comes to them. So this is called What I Dwell On. This is not a nice poem to end on. But anyway, we never come to thoughts, they come to us. And that's Martin Heidegger. It has been months since a good night's sleep, that landing you come to at the foot of the stairs. Instead, 2-hour cat naps before springing awake, as though what is required of me is vigilance. I cannot tell you what I think walking the long corridor to the kitchen for a sip of juice, or wandering into my son's room to imagine his face, the radical purity of something not quite formed. At night, the face becomes more like itself, bones making their minor shifts and settle, like a house sinking as it contracts, the pliant earth rising up to receive it, even the windows, the vanishing roof. When a man jumps from a great height, he dies of suffocation, not impact. I fear those twin perils and falling, now falling asleep. Miser or thief, I hold to what I know. No one sneaks up from behind and pushes me over the balustrade, and no one would claim me breathless and shattered from the depths of sleep.
Hmm.
Good night.
Oh boy.
kidding.
All right, we have a little. Next season, we're going to have a poetry comedy hour where we're no.
God, but that's another thing I should say, that was my defense growing up, and that is humor. There was so much, tension in the house that I could diffuse by humor. So can't even say that it's purely funny.
No, it's great. I think humor is a good tool to have, or a good tool to have in your quiver to be able to bring out and use.
That has a nice double play. I'm looking for this one. Okay. Is this our last one?
Yeah, it's 12:51. I mean, you could do one more poem, and if there are any other questions, yeah.
Are there any other questions?
I'm hoping everyone here is going to have to write a small book report about your presentation. So I don't know why there aren't more questions. No, only kidding.
And post them.
Yeah, that's right. They should be writing reports. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh gosh, then I don't want to read another sad one. Jeez.
No, it doesn't matter. Read whatever strikes your fancy.
Well, here comes fancy. I'm
Uh-oh.
changing my mind. Was it Wendy who asked for a poem about desire?
No, she asked about Night Watch, which I guess is about desire. Yeah.
About desire. Here's another one. This is from a headline from the National Enquirer. Girl trades baby for prom dress. I think it's hysterical. Girl trades baby for prom dress. How smug we feel, we who measure want in dollops. But imagine her wanting to distraction and to be so trapped. That's how much she wants the blue chiffon with blue spaghetti straps, blue rose pinned to the waist, and shoes dyed to match. She wants the gardenia wristlet to dance under the bluest moon, a chance to be elected queen, to neck in a rented limousine. A horse isn't hers to give, nor gold, nor tea. Kings have traded more, been called heroic. When Anna abandoned Sergei, wasn't she tragic? These days, I feel my own parched throat, the bedrock crumbling. For the fecundity of your embrace, I too would pay, and dearly. And just one comment about this, to show how other people do have input, even, when you think you're writing a poem that you created. At one point, I had the idea to make a whole chapbook of National Enquirer headlines. And I had this headline, I just loved it. I just didn't know what to do with it. And a friend of mine said, girl trades baby for prom dress. She said, imagine the dress. And that cracked it open for me.
Nice. Very nice. Well, this has been an intriguing hour. I will say. Well, they're all, listen, they're all, we talked about it. This is my 1 hour to plug myself into the poetry wall. So for me it's like I'm on the super Alka-Seltzer or something. I'm going to be running around the house bubbling for the next 2 hours. So no, thank you very much. Anybody have any final questions? I mean, Karen, come on, there's got to be some dirt. Let's get some stuff out there. We got to.
John, can you send me the chat? I'm sure that's where the dirt is.
Absolutely. We do everything. We record, we save the chat. We're obviously going to be rewriting some of your poems, Wendy and I, tonight. We're good. We're all good.
Well, thank you very much for this chance to be myself.
No, and thanks for recommending Jane for next week.
The Irish poet.
Yeah, we have an Irish poet on St. Paddy's Day. Yeah, that's a first. No, great. No, Barbara, thank you very much.
What about one more poem, Barbara? What about the teeth poem?
Oh, I love that.
Oh, I love the teeth too.
Oh boy, here we go. Okay,
Well,
Wendy.
I'll tell you a funny thing about, do we have time? The thing about teeth is I love it so much, if I can find it, that first of all, I have it memorized, but I won't do it by memorizing it here. This is a poem that should be in every dentist's office. And this is a poem that was one of my early poems, but I'm afraid of flying. So I say it as a mantra when we go up in a plane or come down. I just go very fast. We all live in dread of our teeth, like that. But it goes like this: teeth. We all live in dread of our teeth falling out into our cupped palms. We pray for our teeth clattering in the bone chamber of the skull. And when the little insanities creep up from our throat, our teeth, good soldiers holding their ground, grind them down in our sleep. And praise to the wolf with his sharp incisors, the better to eat. And the ice maiden's teeth, sheathed in enamel, biting clean through the bone. Oh, we would never depart from our eye teeth, rooted dependably above our unremarkable necks. And who is not awed by the white buds of milk teeth that sprout from red plushness and become the cutting edge?
Very, very nice. A great way to end, on the cutting edge.
Right.
Fantastic.
Barbara, thank you so much for joining us. It was a real delight. Thank you to our audience. A recording of today's session will be available on the Stockbridge Library's YouTube channel, which you can get to from our website, stockbridgelibrary.org. Just scroll down to in case you missed it. But of course, it's available. Even if you didn't miss it, you'd just like to hear it again. So thank you to everyone. Barbara, special thank you to you. And of course, as always, John, thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. Yeah, have a great day, everyone.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks
Bye.
again, Barbara.